Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 13, the lucky episode, we're calling it. And we are recording this on the last day of April. Is it last day? Is it last day tomorrow? One of the two, anyway. Tomorrow. And we're heading towards the bank holiday weekend, which I'm sure will be filled with some beery adventures for us all as well. I'll tell you about my sad tale this week, and I've not done very well. These two look like they've had a lot of fun out about in the wilds. Unfortunately, we have no music to set us off this week after Sophie lovely plays last week. Unless Nick's got some Cumbrian nasal music that he might do, because today Nicholas has been beamed in from a little place somewhere near Penrith up in the Lake District. And he sent me some pictures there. He looks like he's had quite a beery couple of days up in the borders. How are you, Nicholas?
What's it called? It's called Fannickwell Park.
Right,
lovely little lodge park. Yeah, about 20 minutes outside Penrith. Once again, the forecast has got the weather completely wrong this week, so we've been playing it by ear. So had a nice walk around Keswick, around the lake and all around there today, and various other places. So yeah, it's all right.
Is it still fairly quiet everywhere?
Compared to what it would normally be, yeah, absolutely. A few more folks out today. Paddy Souls walking, I've seen more cars really side of roads and in laybys that people are just walking the countryside. Yeah, Keswick was certainly busier today than we've experienced Ambleside yesterday, Bowness, and then also we went to Edinburgh on Tuesday, and that was deathly quiet. Never known that place as quiet as it was. So obviously they're missing their international tourists, really are. To say they'd only been open 2 days, any of the bars that were open could have got sat outside, got a drink, no problem at all. Even the shops, there was no queues in the shops to say the non-essential shops have been closed for so long. So yeah, it really was quiet. Yeah.
Stuff. And Bruce, have you been out and about this week?
Pub-wise, ever been this week? Last Thursday we were at West Yorkshire, but we were at Benridden. I was pint in Benridden, but sadly couldn't find anywhere in Ilkley. Locally, the Fox and Crystal Palace have been heaving, although things have turned a bit sour down at the Fox. Reports of people fighting about wearing face masks, very, very sad. I was at Tockwith on Sunday at the Boot and Shoe. That's a grand, cracking little village about 4 miles outside York, a real detached village pub up there, cracking little place. Again, Sam Smith's pub. And we're aiming to get to Harrogate and Knaresborough on Saturday, I believe. So
very good. And for the second week running, Bruce, are you partaking of the malted amber nectar tonight?
I will go get one. I just took an Evie back from Scouts. I have to say, I walked back through the park though, and all the cherry blossoms out on the trees. It was
nice.
Stunning. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to move off the homebrew. I've got a box this week, another box. Can't remember where this one was from. It's an IPA section, so I'm going to start with one of the Saltaire's or Salt Brewery, sorry, from Saltaire, and their Jute Session IPA. I don't think I've had this one before, so that will go down very nicely. So we are going to hopefully finish off York this evening, and I've called this the final Stagger. So episode 9, we began the York journey. And then last week we had a bit of a gap, and then last week Bruce took us round, I guess, the north bit of York, around the Minster, around Bootham Gate, and heading towards kind of Monk's Bar. And we've still got lots of pubs to pick up, so we're going to pick those up this evening, and that will hopefully finish York up. But as we said, we're only going to touch the surface. I think we're going to get to around about 40 odd pubs over 3 episodes, and even then, we've just found out Bruce has forgotten a few pictures he's got on his phone, so we'll perhaps cover those as well. So we've already kind of started on beery highlights, really. So here's a lovely picture of Bruce and friends for those of you on YouTube. So this is the Tockwith one, isn't it, Bruce? You were going to go and have a look at some Sam Smith's pubs. Is this a Smith's pub?
Sadly, lots are closed. I mean, on the way there, we passed Askham Richard, the pub was closed there. The pub at Long Marston was closed. We know the pub at Bolton Percy's closed, Appleton Roebuck's closed, Wart Hill's closed. Really, really sad, because these are all cracking pubs. Ironically, with tons of outside drinking, the pub at Long Marston and Appleton Roebuck have huge paddocks, not beer gardens, they have paddocks. The pub at Bolton Percy's got an amazing garden that goes down to the river, over the stream. I mean, it's just so sad. But
do you think this is because obviously most of their pubs are managed, and therefore those guys will be on furlough, won't they? Because they're, unlike an independent landlord.
I mean, and a lot of people seem to think that, what you get, it's not too well remunerated. But, you're getting all your accommodation. It's a strange one, really. I'm amazed there are so many closed. You know, I mean,
Again, if you're on furlough, so you're getting 80% of your wage that you would have been getting anyway, without any of the hassle. Like you say, you're probably still getting your house rent free, or certainly very reduced rent.
yeah, but the ones that were closed from before, Michael, and the salary.
No, right. So it may not be
somehow
open.
thought if all the hospitality job losses come, people
Yeah.
fucking run them. I mean, you've got the York Arms and the Shadow York Minster closed. I mean, it's just a bizarre situation.
And I noticed today one of the papers talking about the other big thing that's going to hit us yet, obviously, is the lack of overseas hospitality staff. Bar staff, waiters, waitresses, who a lot of them come, some of them come on gap years and things from Australia, but actually a lot of them come from Eastern Europe. And again, they've just all gone back and are stuck back over there, even though they wanted to come here as well. So that
the hotel in York's been advertising for staff. It was in our local paper. A well-known chain hotel's been advertising for staff. And apparently there's loads of jobs. There's only one applicant, so that really bears out.
But again, that paper said that the problem with it is people on furlough won't come back. They're refusing to come back to work because they know I'd rather stay on furlough. So anyway, so that's a jolly afternoon. And then Nick, you've sent us a few photos. Sorry, that's my little thing. I didn't get anywhere last weekend. everywhere I managed to get to was already pretty full. And it was quite a nice weekend, certainly Friday, Saturday, wasn't it? And I know Friday night we went to a couple of places and there were lots of very happy people sat there. And it was fairly obvious they weren't going to budge for quite a while. It was either hang on until about 8 o'clock and get bloody cold. So in the end, I came home and drank homebrew. So I was out of luck last week. So what I did, I came back home, I had some of my homebrew and I booked on. So I've got a little bit of an epic journey, a little trip this weekend. So we're going up to Buxton Brewery, booked in there for 12:30 on Saturday, have a couple of hours there, and then we're going off to a really nice pub called the Royal Oak, which is in Hurdlow, which again is a nice kind of bistro-y kind of gastro pub campsite with it as well, and they normally have 3 nice beers on. And then on Sunday we're going to go to the Mecca that is the Thornbridge Brewery. As we said, I think mentioned last week, me and Nick have been there a while ago. They've converted most of their car park into quite a large outdoor space with a pizza oven. So going there for a couple of hours as well. And then I'm going to call back in to the 3 Horseshoes at Blackstreamore for some Sunday tea and a few more beers. So that's my little weekend plan. So Nicholas, you've been drinking around the borders by the look of it. Lots of pictures here of you enjoying very fine cask beer around the top end of the country.
So left-hand side, we started Hawkshead Brewery. You can see their little van in the background there. So they had quite a sizable outdoor area in front of their beer hall. The one in the middle is, that's in the Grass Market in Edinburgh. That was the last drop at Nicholson's Pub. As I say, the only cask beer they had on was St. Austell Tribute. Now, I know St. Austell make their Nicholson's IPA, and the French guy that was serving me was a bit embarrassed because he said, "Oh, no, it's not the beer that we should have. Is this okay?" And I said, "Yeah, that'll do me." But yeah, it was very, very quiet. They'd put some gazebos up central area there.
Yeah. Tribute's not a bad beer, is it? It's a bit stronger than normal, isn't it, Tribute? Is it just under 5 or is it on 5?
Yeah, I've got a bottle in the fridge as well, actually.
A bit stronger, isn't it?
Yeah. I dropped into the Wetherspoons in Keswick today and all they could offer me was Abbott or Ruddles, which I was a bit disappointed by. But I was in one of my favourite pubs yesterday, the Albert in Bowness. That's the Robinson's pub, and pleased to say they had Cumbrian Way and Dizzy Blonde on, and the Dizzy Blonde was good fettle and decent price as well. That's the other thing I've noticed. Obviously, Edinburgh and certain places in the lakes, you're over £4 a pint easily now. In fact, at first, the only beer it was looking like I could get Nicholson's was going to cost me £5.80 for a pint. That was some craft lager that they had on. But this is when he said, "Oh no, we have got a cask beer, and I'll go and check what it is for you." I still end up paying about £4.30, £4.40 for that one, I think. But expect it city centre. But as I say, best pub so far this week has been the Albert in Bowness on Windermere. They've got a nice outdoor area. In fact, they've got it 2-tiered. They've got a covered area with some heat lamps. We have sat outside before there, actually. They were ticking over nicely, which was good to see.
And we mentioned Hawks a couple of weeks ago that they've been recently taken over by Halewood.
A couple of years, actually. Not recently, a couple of years.
Yeah. Was that any different at the brewery there then? Because
no, they had the same beers on. I had thought about maybe trying to find the staff that used to be there where they've got into Kendal.
Yeah.
I know you said they were sort of north of the railway station, but
I think looking at the pictures they keep tweeting, they're just getting the brewery set up by the looks of it. I know they were tweeting about drains yesterday in the brew, like they did a runoff in the brewing bit. So I'm not quite sure. They're getting close, I think. I think they're looking for, I think end of May, I think they probably will be open there.
And I have noticed the number of new microbreweries around here, you know, going to the local supermarkets. That's one thing with Penrith. There's 3 large supermarkets. There's a Boots, there's Morrison's, there's Sainsbury's. And they've all got never seen as many different local ales on offer before. Some of them which I recognise, and there must be at least half a dozen breweries now. I mean, last time I was up here late.
Yeah, and I think
only year and a half ago, and yet there must be half a dozen new microbreweries now, all knocking the bottle beers out. I mean, at the moment, I'm one called. This is Fellwalker. This is by the Bonus Bay Brewery. That £1.50 in booths. So all good stuff.
Yeah, you sent me a photo, and I'm not. I think I put it in. I must turn it off too quick for it kind of auto saved. You just give a selection there of beers that you've got from the supermarket, which again quite a range, like you say. And again, that was some of the news, I think, wasn't it? There was a couple of, and it kind of caused a bit of a beery storm, didn't it? Cloudwater in Manchester, who have been traditionally very independent, I think announced, I think sometime last week, that they've actually done a deal with Tesco's, and they are putting 8 of their beers exclusively to Tesco's, and that caused a lot of kind of discussion. Actually, when you look at it, it's an interesting story, really. So they've got 2 packs, basically 2 times 4 for a tenner. Now, there's quite a lot of worry from the bottle shops that then creates a little bit of a price hit, doesn't it? You know, if you're Cloudwater's not that expensive, but I guess they probably, I guess you wouldn't get 4 for a tenner in a bottle shop unless they're an offer. But what's happened is the 1 4-pack is a collab. So every beer, there's 4 different beers in the pack, and they're all done with a different kind of smaller brewery. So Eco Brewery, Rock Leopard, Queer Brewing, and Good Karma Beer Company. And in fact, all of these have been brewed by Brewdog. So Brewdog have actually brewed all of these on behalf of Cloudwater. And Brewdog and Cloudwater have both said they're taking no profit, and any money made from these beers will go back to those 4 independent breweries to support them. So it's a bit more of a story, really, than I think. And you know, Cloudwater said we've had loads of offers to go to supermarkets, and we've picked the one that we think's best for us. But they are going to put there's another 4-pack of their core range. But again, it's all being brewed by Brewdog up in Aberdeen, which is interesting, isn't it? That they're doing that. So that then set off people saying, "Oh, it tastes like Brewdog." And apparently those that have drank it say no, it doesn't taste like Cloudwater. And then almost I think the day after, Vault City, which are in Edinburgh, Nick, Vault City, they're a fairly newish brewery. They specialise in sour beers, and they've also got a Tesco deal as well, which is really interesting. So Tesco's are going to sell 2 of their saves on sour beers. I think they're in bottles as well. So that, you know, interesting that, as you say, in Tesco's and people are getting onto the jumping on the bandwagon a little bit. But again, I'll just nip forward a story or so. I know Bruce has got a couple of ones as well, and just that one, I don't know if you guys picked this up, that Guinness or Diageo, are pulling that Hop House 13. You know, they forget. Again, it's 2015. It's quite a while it's been around, and by all accounts, they did it to jump on the craft lager, craft beer kind of scene, and they just think that it's just not making any money. Or it's from being one of the UK's biggest selling beers, it's completely slumped. Which is interesting. So they're actually going to.
I think they did like that in Wetherspoons, didn't they? So obviously, if they're losing out the Wetherspoons market, then they will have noticed drop in sales. Yeah,
and it's not a bad drink. I actually first drank that in Ireland. Actually, first time I ever saw it was in Ireland. Guinness they went through a phase where they brought up quite a lot. There was a red ale and the Hop House and one or two other slight different ones.
I've done that in Wetherspoons. It's curry night, and I'm not fancying the real ale that's on. Obviously, with having a curry as well, rather than going for any other sort of lager, I'd always go for Hop House 13 when it's included in your curry meal deal. So, yeah, I've drunk it. It's all right. It's lager, isn't it?
And another thing that Guinness reminds me that I'm going to come back. I was on the Pete Brown thing I'll talk about in a minute. They were talking there about the Belgium Guinness, which I think I have heard about before. So we know, Guinness has got quite the export. You can buy Guinness export in the UK. I think that's 6%, isn't it? Then the Nigerian one is the strong one at 7%. But apparently there is a Belgian Guinness, which is 8.8%.
Never knew that.
And all of the beery people say that is the one you want to try and find. It's hard to find, they said. You can get it in bottle shops in England, but you can obviously get it in England. I think it might even be brewed in Belgium, but they said that's the Guinness that you want to find, the Belgium Guinness. And it's about 8.8%, and it's better than the Nigerian Guinness. So
I got
that's
a-
one to look out
I
for.
got a couple of bottles similar to that in Malaysia, of all places, in Penang, and it's got
Yeah.
a bulldog on the label.
Right.
And that was getting up for 8% because I had a bottle of that and I thought, blimey, yeah, like a barley wine again. It was very, very flavoursome.
Finish off the tune. We've got another couple of pictures here with you with fine pints of. In fact, one
so
breaking the lorry. One of them.
Past this pub many times. The one in the middle, obviously the Kirkstone Pass. Passed it many, many times. We came up actually from the other way. Came up from Ullswater. No, we'll come from Ambleside down into Ullswater. This time coming from Penrith, we came the other way, and I said, look, time of day it was. If it's open, we'll stop off. Afraid to say it wasn't a great pint. Plastic glass, which I can understand. Crossed over the road, you could sit there. So best view in the country in that respect. But it was Tyrrell, which is a local brewery. But once again, I think not expecting them to have been serving very much of it. Seeing it was when was that? That was Wednesday midday. Not had much Tyrrell beer. Whether it was to do with that was their flavour, but whether it's because it was the first one of the day as well. So I only had one up there. And then left hand side there, you can see on the glass, that's the Dizzy Blonde. That's in the Albert in Bowness, which I say has been my best beer so far this week. I think a couple of pints of that was very nice. And I said that was priced about $3.90, I think that was. So that was just below the £4 mark, which was acceptable as far as I was concerned. Yeah.
And what's that been like? The cask? I know we did it in Whitby, but what's it been like having some proper beer for the first time in quite a long time? Like, actually, for you guys, not bad because you were still drinking in November, weren't you? Some of us were.
It's obviously the weather. I mean, we called into the Wetherspoons in Peebles the way back down from Edinburgh because it's got a huge beer garden now. Unfortunately, they only had half of it open, which was just the front car park area of the pub. The weird laws in Scotland now mean that you can drink outside. You can't drink inside, but you can have a meal inside. So I had a pint. We then went into the Wetherspoons to have something to eat. So in fact, I had something to eat and I had a kind of iron brew because it has to be soft drinks only. And then I said to Jackie, shall we go back outside and have a final pint? And we said, no, we'll get home. So yeah, it was weird being outside, moving inside, and then theoretically you have to go back outside to have a beer again.
Bonkers, isn't it?
Because inside, it's a big, because it's a hotel.
Yeah.
And, the 20 or so people that were huddled underneath umbrellas sat outside could easily have moved into the pub and not caused any issues whatsoever in terms of, we could have had one area of the pub each almost in terms of the social distancing. And with the airflow, if they just propped a couple of doors open, there wouldn't have been any problem at all. But there we are. As I say, we've got the weekend to come yet. We've got a couple more ideas. They've actually opened a new place in Ambleside. It's like a yard. And in fact, one of the businesses that connected that, they're advertising that they're going to be getting Brewdog in a tank. So I know you spoke about a few years ago when the clubs in the north, they used to bring in their beer by tanker, and they used to have these huge, massive, great big tanks instead of bringing barrels in. It seems in Brewdog are doing a similar thing to that. I suspect they do that in some of their own pubs.
Yeah.
But whichever the independent business is, it's like a yard, and there's different food courts. There's a couple of bars there, and they're all using the same central area. Just where the little houses on the bridge.
Yeah.
They're utilising that area there in Ambleside. So as I say, they're advertising, saying, we're getting Brewdog in a tank, so you'll get fresh Brewdog beer, straight out of the tank sort of thing.
But I think it'd be interesting, actually. A lot of the podcasts I've listened to this week, people all kind of moaning slightly about the cold, especially when it gets 8 o'clock at night. It just goes bloody. And it has, we've had the coldest April in history or something, haven't we? And
we've had hailstones here, and so up in the mountains coming out of Keswick, they were white over.
Yeah. And the forecast this weekend, actually isn't great. It's going to be quite cold, 10, 11 degrees, and a bit of rain.
Down all day, yeah.
And a bit of rain. So I'll be interested to see what happens. And, this could kill off, couldn't it? I mean, great. There's been a bit of a bounce back as expected. But again, if it's going to be a horrible weekend, people will say, you know what, sod it. I'm going to go Tesco's, get them Cloudwater beers and 2 sours, and then we're going to go anyway. We'll see what happens. So my beery highlights have been a little bit kind of unbeery, really. I mentioned last week, this was last night. It was quite an enjoyable thing, really. Pete Brown, obviously author of many books and guild writer, etc. He's, again, I guess, because he's not doing lots of, I guess this time of year, there's a lot of book festivals normally, isn't there? Hay Book Festival, etc. So he said he's going to have a book club. It was an idea he just kind of put on Twitter. So I think there's about 49 people last night that joined in. It cost £3.50. And I think I said to you, Bruce, it's
That's
cost
right.
of having a pint, really, isn't it? And
That's
to
great
give him
value.
his due, he started at 7. I actually finished because I got to get ready for work. So he was still going on about 10 to 9 o'clock. They were still in fair flow. He did stop and he had to go for a pee. And he said, right, I'm going for a pee. I'm going to stop there. But if you want to stay on, and he did, and give him his due, he cracked on and talked like that. And next week he's going to do a similar thing, 3 Sheets in the Wind, which is where he looks at kind of the development of beer around the globe. And I presume then he'll do the IPA one where he took the IPA to India again. So, well, if he Wednesday afternoon, it's interesting. He is quite an articulate speaker. He's certainly got lots of stories to tell about beers and brewery, but actually quite a lot of fun. There was 1 or 2 quite I'll say characters who were happy to kind of chip along as well. I mean, I was just mainly using the chat function and doing that, but there was a couple lads there that were happy to have a bit. They're both from the West Midlands, if I remember rightly, who were great. So actually it developed into, there was a lad from the Ukraine who actually had a copy of this book in Russian or Ukrainian, which was apparently there's only Pete Barron never seen it. He'd never actually seen it. And apparently Carlsberg in Ukraine had printed off some special copies, only about 50. And this lad had worked for Carlsberg and somebody had given him this book and say he was there, said, I have the book. That was quite interesting. So he took, there was a guy from Spain, it was really interesting actually. So I've got to plug here. Look, if you fancy it, it's next week. You can book on. I think there probably is a limit on how many people do it. I'd say it seemed to be no problem last night. And if you
has he got the date right this time?
I think he has. Yeah, 5th of May is next Wednesday.
Did he tell him he got his date wrong last time?
And then my other I had to so because I couldn't get any pubs, I ended up doing, as I suggested I would be doing, with again actually with mate Simon and Finley. Actually, we sat down and we did. He's nearly of age. We sat down and did the Sheffield tasting box that
drink at the age of 5 in your own house. That's
well,
crazy.
Fine then. It was in the garden, and we drank the Camera AGM weekend, and that was quite nice. Yeah, it was good. Some interesting beers. Kellam Island stood out. The Pale Rider, which I know has been a good beer, that just stood out. We quite liked the Abbeydale was a dark IPA, which is really a bit weird when you first drank it, but it kind of built on you. And that was a dark IPA. So it looked like a stout, but it was a dark IPA. It was quite interesting. So that was a bit of fun watching that. And I think we ended up sitting there till about 11:30. I realised it was 11:30. And of course they couldn't get Sam and Sarah couldn't get a taxi for hours. So we had a very late night, which I'm just about recovering from now. B&U's, just quick two from me, then one from Bruce. We've mentioned this before, really. Again, another thing that hit the headlines earlier this week was the rise of shandy. And we've now got quite a few breweries. We mentioned quite a few breweries who are specialising, but all the brewing is alcohol-free AF beers again. And apparently shandy. So there's now a brewery called the Shandy Shack, there you go, that is specialising, as they're calling it here, the hipster drink of shandy at 2.8%. And apparently there's a big thing here that's rolling out from probably from Bandamic, this idea of drinking low beers, this idea about maybe being in control. We hear quite a lot now about people get drunk, and that's often when we get issues with harassment, etc. So this is a good way of enjoying beers, enjoying company, but not going bad. And we've certainly all enjoyed a shandy. I still enjoy shandy every now and then in summer. Love a shandy.
I mean, I was going to say 2.8. Actually, that's not weak, is it? I mean, that's a few years ago the breweries were bringing out light beers. A proper official shandy in a can is something like less than 0.5%. So I suppose people have got to be careful with that. I bought some of that Bavaria that is it's made, I think it's Holland, Bavaria shandy. I mean, it's been made for years, but to be honest with you, compared to Morrison's own canned shandy, it doesn't taste as nice.
Yeah.
But that's less than 1%, I think, whereas 2.8%, if somebody thinks they're going to have half a dozen cans of that and be all right, they've got to be careful, really, in terms of driving and stuff.
What were them lemony ones that people started making? I can't remember the call now. I'm on about what them lemony lager things that people began.
Well, you had Rattler, didn't you?
Rattlers, that's it. Rattlers, yeah. And they haven't really caught on. They're horrible. But I think a good shandy.
They were like lager and lime, weren't they? Lager and lime, lager with citrus in, but lemonade. Then
Rattlers, yeah. And then Bruce, you picked this one up. Yorkshire Post this week. This a bit of a bleak outlook for pubs with over 2,000. I presume these were in Yorkshire, likely to remain closed. And pub hotspots in Yorkshire bleak economic recovery after long lockdown, with over 2,000 Yorkshire pubs forced to remain closed. And you listed quite a few there, didn't you? Which, like you say, have been closed quite a while now. And you do worry, the longer a pub is closed, the more likely it's not to return, isn't it?
It is. It's really quite shocking. That's like you think there's 2,000 in the country, it'd be bad at 2,000 in Yorkshire's. Astonishing, really, isn't it? And I mean, we were in Ilkley there last week, and there was only one pub in the city centre there, not near big pub near Lishman's. They had a beer garden. It was the only place you could get a drink, really. And for these places where spaces are scarce, it's going to be especially if temperature remains like this, it's going to be bleak for, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, but again, everything again. There's what was it, Hancock thing yesterday. Looks like we're on the right road map. It's saying so. So another 18 days, and pubs should be able to open inside. I'm still not quite sure how that's going to operate, and that'd be interesting to see, as Nick was suggesting then, if there are any really stupid rules. From what I understand, quite a lot of those stupid rules are going. So I presume it'll be table service only. I presume, again, you won't be able to move around as much as you used to be able to do. I presume you probably won't be able to stand at the bar. Although I've seen one or two pubs saying, no, we are letting you come and stand at the bar and order your drink.
Yeah.
So it's see kind of how it works, really. And again,
once again, I mean, the Hawkshead Beer Hall the other day, we were all sat outside. If you're going to want to go to the loo, or if you want to go in and order carry-outs, takeaways, you can go and stand at the bar. So I walked back from the room, and there's a guy stood at the bar, and I thought, well, what's he doing? And then he was asking for beer, but he was taking it away.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, don't really make sense, does it?
No. And again, it's I think just again, the amount of work that these pubs are putting in and doing and spending lots and lots of money on one-way systems and plastic screens and apps and even just think about those people that sell those bloody card machines, for pay with. I bet they are rubbing their hands. It's probably Nick not Nick Hancock. Somebody's Tory's mate, probably.
Online booking and online ticketing. And say it certainly seems that Wetherspoon's app is struggling because there wasn't anybody using it in Keswick today. And I said to the bloke, I said, is it because it's your internet? He said, oh well, yeah. I said, well, I'm not on your internet. I'm on my own internet. It's showing full bars, and yet the app is just still spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. Normally
it's really good, but you're right. Every now and then you come to a place where it doesn't work. I remember last time we had struggling. We had the hop, actually, we're going to mention in a minute. I remember we went outside the hop in York. Yeah. And again, I said, mate, I said, I've got a top of the range phone and I have no problem doing this. And he kept saying, no, it's not your fault, your fault. I said, I don't think it is my fault. It's just not bloody working. Well,
we walked off, walking off, didn't we?
Yeah. So we're on the final part of York. So I've got some numbers there. I reckon in episode 9, part 1, we talked about 22 pubs. In episode 12 last week, we talked about 16 pubs. And I think there's another, God knows how many, to talk about tonight as well. So I think we're going to get well over the 40 mark. So we've done I've got a map of York up on the screen here. And I think we've kind of done most of the left-hand side, haven't we? And we've started to just come, if you like, from 12 o'clock round to about 2 o'clock. And we're going to finish up the circle out with Bruce running today. Finish up that kind of Warmgate area, Piccadilly, that kind of area of York, aren't we? In the Shambles and those areas as well. So kick us off then. It's a long time since I've been in this pub, but this is quite old worldy. So your first choice this week is the Blue Boar in Castlegate.
It is. Formerly used to be called the Little John, the Blue Bar. It's on so that's why. Remember the Little John? Yeah. So this again, owned by a called Jason Hawke and Jason Watkins. There was a few pubs in York, but it's really committed to real ale. And this is one of York's forgotten pubs, really. It's kind of been restored a little bit and renovated, but it's got a great feel to it. Big range of real ales on. Brilliant courtyard at the back. It's got seating out the front. It's open now. It's a small pub, but the seating. It's really atmospheric. He's got a cracking little courtyard out the back, a wash with fairy lights, pizza oven. And if you look to avoid the crowds, this is a good choice, really. It's very central.
Castlegate's one of those little streets that, again, it's kind of York people know it, don't they? Because, like you say, it's normally a little bit quieter than the main. And just for context, we're kind of just in between the main shopping street in York, which is Coney Street, and the Castle Museum and Clifford's Tower, aren't we? We're in that little bit in between.
We're literally at the back of the Arctic Viking Centre.
Yeah.
We're at the back of the Viking Centre. So well worth a trip at the Blue Bar. And I say one of York's forgotten pubs, want to avoid the crowds. It's opposite
He always
York.
has landlord on there, Bruce. Tony Taylor's. He has a range of Taylor's beers on there.
It
that
does,
I've
yeah.
known.
I would definitely recommend a visit to the Blue Bar. That's quite a strange history, but I used to get all the Little John and various things, and even a lot of local people don't go to it. But yeah, definitely worth the trip, especially if you're on a mad weekend to avoid the
They have a
crowd.
downstairs in the basement, don't they? They have a downstairs in the basement. You
They
almost
do,
sit in
yeah,
the
that's
cellar.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's well worth. It's pleasant pub, Blue Bar, yeah.
Okay, and then you round the corner there, then into a bit of a more mainstream pub, aren't you, that's kind of a bit more on one of the more busier roads in York, the 3 Tons, which we used to go to quite a lot when we were young, didn't we?
So Coppergate again. This is to the front of the York Viking Centre, if you like, really, on the side of Coppergate. Arguably, now the Old Starring claims to be York's oldest pub. A lot of debate. A lot of people think actually the 3 Tons is the oldest pub. It's a big, long, narrow one-room pub now. It's had a few rough years of 3 Tons, it's fair to say. But it's from the same ownership as the Blue Bar now. And again, a large range of rail ales, real bit of history in there, lots of history displayed on the walls. And again, a one to go if you're looking to avoid the sort of crowds, really, because Coppergate's a bit of a street that links the two places. Sadly, more than its fair share of empty shops up Coppergate now. There used to be a famous carvery restaurant to the left of the 3 Tons. It was a fixture for day trippers. That's closed down now. So the 3 Tons does it possibly get the passage trade it deserves, albeit it's a bit of Viking Centre. But so definitely worth looking to avoid the crowds. And again, decent food at sort of working class prices as well, really, and a large selection of rail ales.
Used to be a Mansfield pub, that one.
Yeah,
it is.
When I used to go in there, Mansfield Ridings and Mansfield. What was the other one they used to do? Yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness it's a free house now, isn't it?
It's a cracking building. I mean, it's one of those, like you say, wonky built medieval building. You can see there it's had bits put onto it. Now, again, we used to go in there a lot when we were a little bit younger, and then it went through a bit of, like you say, but a mad stage. It was kind of one of them on the mad kind of slug and lettuce, and probably went to 3 Tons. And I know we've been there a couple of times when it was a bit rowdy on a Saturday afternoon when it was kind of on the tour that you did around York, and had whatever, you had a bottle of lager in each one. And then from there, you are then moving
down about 100 meters downhill to the Pavement Vaults. So the Pavement Vaults, on the face of it, doesn't look a particularly great pub. This was a hotel that was famously was York's longest standing derelict building. This was the old Black Swan Hotel. It used to have a fish and chip shop at the bottom. And there was a massive dispute with the family, and I think the building laid empty for about 35 years or something, didn't there? And then eventually there was some resolution with the family. The only thing that was there for years was Jessop's camera shop, where the Pavement Vaults now is. But eventually, I say, the wrangle over the inheritance was settled. And whilst most of those buildings above they're now actually city centre flats, I believe. I say, you can't believe that in the central York, this was empty and really derelict, for 30 years. So the guys from Pivney, they came along there. Again, they're close to Thornbridge. They started the Pavement Vaults, and it's really, really nice now. It's a one-level bar, huge range of beers, fantastic American pit barbecue food, real high standard barbecue food as well there. Outdoor seating, but when you go downstairs, they've got some fantastic little booths. You can get one of those. It's absolutely great. I say the only things will be ruined now is the fact they've got absolutely no outdoor seating.
Outdoor space,
those windows that you can see there, they all open inwards, so you can kind of be sat inside, to have the fresh air there. But obviously, people come very close. But I say, if you're into ribs and things like that, ribs, wings, fantastic barbecue food. But I say, more than welcome just for a drink, and a huge range of rail ales, as indeed all the Pivney guys always do,
And again, it's another area. I'm just thinking again, we're going to cover quite a few pubs within about 100 yards of this pub. So you're on the crossroads. Bruce is almost standing on the corner of Marks and Spencer's there, which again, if you know York, you'll know where it's a huge Marks and Spencer's. And there must be, God knows, 8, 9, 10 pubs. Probably if you rotate round.
Oh yeah,
just in this area here, isn't there? There is literally loads and loads. And again, in the distance there, if you're on YouTube, there is the red and white building, kind of where all the roadworks are, and that's Russell's, which is again quite a famous restaurant. I think it must be one of the first ever carvery restaurants, probably in the country.
Closed now, sadly.
I know, and in that window there used to be a huge, great side of beef, didn't they? And we never went in there. We just going to look through the window and slaver on the window as people were queuing up. As some chef was, I mean, literally, it was half a cow that they were carving up there, which is all good. So I think I'm going to turn left, bro, or from where you're standing there on the corner of whatever that bit of, is it pavement there where we are? You're going to turn. Oh no, you're not. You're going to go in behind Marks and Spencer's. And we mentioned this pub briefly last week because Bruce was in Valhalla, blowing his horn and drinking out of his drinking horn, or in Pivney. Me and Nick would have stuck into the Thornbridge Market Cat, wouldn't we, Nick? So the Market Cat, Bruce. This is quite a newish pub, isn't it, in York?
It is. I mean, it's a pretty. I mean, it looks a very, inauspicious, quite unappealing pub on the outside, but it's absolute gem inside. Again, run by the guys from Pivney. I think run 50-50 in conjunction with Thornbridge. This one, Thornbridge actually are 50% business people. So got a huge range of Thornbridge beers. All the Pivney range, the Bernard, lots of interesting craft beers there. Downstairs.
He's always full. Downstairs is always rammed.
And then that, as we look down there, all those fantastic booths you can get there. They spent a fortune on this pub. Great booths, leather seating, great seats to the corner. Up on the first floor there, again, you've got booth seating, haven't you? And those windows open out fully indoors. So again, and remember, we can't see it, but you're over actually looking the market. You're looking on the
Hang on, well, I've got you the picture. So those on YouTube. Well done, this is why you've got to go up, if possible, to the top floor, which is a bit of a climb.
Yeah, if you're not too drunk, because it's a very narrow staircase. I've always wondered how they get away with the fire regulation, because it's the only way up and down there, and it's a very narrow, steep staircase. But even that's interesting because they've used old barrel stairs on the wall. As a bit of interior decoration as you're walking up the staircase. Some people don't notice, but if you look closely, you realise that the old barrel stairs that they've sort of put on the wall sort of artistically.
And you get this fantastic view over York Market, which is still a cracking outdoor market, proper old-fashioned market.
From the other window, of course, you've got that stunning view of the Minster.
Minster, yeah. And I looked for that, but I thought this one's nice because you get all the pantiles. I mentioned that York's a very low-lying city. The Minster is the only big building in York. Apart from those posh hotels that Bruce wants to go and drink cocktails on, a Japanese fusion cocktail. But apart from that, it's always kind of 2-3 story pantiles. So well worth the climb up the stairs, really. In fact, I think last time, not last time I was in there, we've been there before, but I remember Nick, me and you took our Australian mates there, didn't we? And that view, they were just blown away by, looking at houses there that were built 3 to 500 years before Australia was even thought about. So that's what blew their minds a bit, which is
staggering, really, when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're very proud of their pizzas, aren't they? Here, because they have a big proper pizza oven, don't they? In there,
yeah, they're very good pizzas.
Was that a legacy? Was it a pizza place before it became a pub?
It was a pawnbrokers. It's been a shoe shop.
All right.
Clothes shop. I used to buy my student clothes in there, tie-dye t-shirts and denim jackets and stuff.
I mean, fantastic they've done this because it would have been an ugly, empty. Fantastic boozer there now. So say fair game to them,
So fantastic. So again, and we're still in that same kind of area, in kind of again either side of Marks and Spencer's. So we're back onto this is pavement. This is kind of the like where I would say is the food hall part of Marks and Spencer's. When you come out of there, you're into here. You're near the Shambles, and this is the Golden Fleece, Bruce, which again is must be another one of York's oldest pubs, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. It's incredible, about the third oldest pub, and the one that makes the biggest fuss about all its ghosts as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Most haunted pub, isn't it, in York? It
claims to be the most haunted pub. I think when the actor Ghost Hunter man used to go on TV, is it Derek Ancora? He had a visit there and said it was incredibly haunted. And actually, to be fair, it's actually, the back room is really atmospheric when it's full of people.
Yeah.
So we don't tend to go to too often now, and it's one of the, you forget about it really. It's got a little room at the front that's quite atmospheric, a long narrow corridor, and a large but cosy room at the very back. There's often live music there. They have a rail fire in there, don't they? And it does have a really good vibe. There's also a lot of live music there.
It's always a bit gothy when I've been in recently. It's all those people who come up from Whitby for the day and go to the go. I think because it's so haunted, it kind of attracts people with dark lipstick on and things, piercings all over bodies. And
also people like soup, because do you remember the marketing ploy they had, Bruce? If you went in there and had a main course, if you said you've seen the ghost, you got a free stoop starter. And they actually have that all over blackboards. Say you've seen the ghost, you get a free super starter. So yeah.
And actually, the picture Bruce has got there. Actually, the building next door is probably even older, isn't it? Because that's a proper old medieval kind of wall and dob or whatever you want to say. In fact, the Golden Fleece looks like a bit of an infill, doesn't it? Really, that was kind of feeling.
Well,
it's still old.
That's the whiskey and gin shop now, isn't it, Bruce?
Yeah.
It was John's the bootmaker, and now it's the York Gin Shop. And what's the name of that? I've temporarily forgotten. What's the name of the alley that goes between that building and Pizza? It's got a really unusual name, hasn't it? It's I've forgotten it.
Yeah, yeah.
Alley to know, but yeah.
You are quite close. Whitwell Gate is across the road from this, aren't you? Which is one of the York's famous streets. And then wasn't there one of those pie places down here many moons ago?
One of what?
One little pie place, a pie shop. A pie restaurant here. I'm sure there was.
It's Greg's there, you can see.
No, not Greg's.
No,
like the one in Lincoln. There was one in York. I'm sure it was on this street. I don't know when it was. Maybe it was a bit further up.
Ring a distant bell with me, yeah.
Yeah. And then this is the same street, is it, Bruce? And then
we're up at Goodham Gate now. So if
Goodham Gate, yeah.
should have gone up the Shambles. We'll return to Shambles soon, and we'll be at Goodham Gate, which kind of heading towards a monk bar part of the walls here. A collection of pubs. Along Goodham Gate, you've got the Golden Lion, you've got the Swan. You've got the Snickleway, the Golden Slipper, the Royal Oak, and the Cross Keys, and also one this had back called Keystones, which we'll visit for our purpose today. So again, another seven pubs there. Also the Habit, that makes it 8, doesn't it? Eight pubs in one small street. So the Golden Slipper, again, quite historic, this one. Famously an old building and used to be an undertaker's, the Golden Slipper. Cosy pub, feels very much like a locals pub, but a real authentic pub feel. It's got 3 rooms to it, an old corridor, and famously has a hatch from the salon there to the back where they used to feed the coffins, from like the Undertaker's parlour to the back where they've all been laid out. That's still there. As a fiery in winter though, and again, just think about this the other day, really. I remember Alexis Sale once made a joke that it was easier to find an Eccles cake in London than it's easy to find crack cocaine in London than Eccles cake, rather. And York's getting a bit like that, really. You can get everything sometimes, it appears, back from proper English pub food. But the Golden Slipper is one of those places where you can go in for £7 or £8, get a really decent meal, sort of cottage pie, liver and onion, sausage and mash, pies, that type of thing, really. Real good prices, proper home cooked food, not sniff a microwave in sight. And I'd say a choice of real ale. So definitely worth a trip to the Golden Slipper. And I think our next slide, you can
I'm going to say next door. There's a pub actually next door, isn't there?
It is, yeah, which should be our next slide.
Which is, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Right, we're there, the Royal Oak.
No, so Royal Oak, directly next door. And Royal Oak's a lovely pub, as it probably became 17th century. Big controversial this, though, because the Royal Oak was always a very homely pub. And again, did cracking real ale food, had roaring fires. And then a few years ago, had some money spent on it. So again, it's got a slightly more modern feel inside. Committed though to real ale. Really good food, you have to say. It's the favourite room, still the one at the back on the left-hand side. But almost, I think it lost a little something when they renovated it, really. It did have quite a nice age feel to it, didn't it, Nick? Have you been in since it's been done up?
No.
Yeah. It's nice, it's comfortable, but it kind of lost a little something that was done up, really. But I say the food is good, the ale is good, so I say, but still worth a visit. And again, when you're in Central York, remember, York, like everywhere now, sadly inundated with chain restaurants and lots of Nicholson's pubs. But again, these guys are in great food at a great price as well. And even on the evening, getting a proper, real good dinner in here. And again, it won't break the bank.
Yeah, I'm afraid to admit, Bruce, if I'm down that part of York and I'm a drink, I normally go in the Swan because it's Nicholson's. I normally get either money off or, especially when the rugby's been on, and get me 3 pints of Guinness. And you walk into the Swan, obviously you've got that massive, great Ignal Nook fireplace to the right hand side, so you can get sat in front of the fire, watching everything going on. So that's where I would normally go. I remember that.
The last time we were down here, Bruce, this was when they used the again, I think it was a deal with York Council, in that these pubs would all be able to get together and use the Minster Yard, which is kind of back of York Minster. There's quite a nice open green space, haven't they? And
they've just put the tables up today. They've just
right. So it's a great place to drink. It's great because you can go to any of these pubs, get a drink, and then take it back and sit in Minster Yard, which is really nice. Again, it was busy. I mean, we were there. There was, well, every table, we were lucky. We got a little table to ourselves, but it was pretty busy. So it was. And then
they were talking about were they talking about using the Minster School playing field as well, Bruce? Because the Minster School's closed.
Apparently, someone signed a deal for it. It's going to be a high-end coffee shop. There are rumours that Betty's and Taylor's they're going to handle it. I mean, they're not averse to having lots of concentrated units in one place. If you go to Harrogate, for example, you're in the town centre, then they operate all the catering outs at Harlow Car. And of course, it would be a fantastic setting, wouldn't it? And of course, interestingly, of course, they've the Little Betty's Cafe on Stonegate next to the House of Temple Madness. They've announced they're closing the smaller one. So you think, well, that was quite successful. So to me, it leads credence to the rumour that they're going to reopen the Old Minster School as a sit-down coffee shop, keep the shop on Little Stonegate, and the next Betty's is actually going to be in the grounds of the Minster there. So I think that could possibly well have legs to it, that rumour, yeah. So now, if you were coming out away from the Royal Oak,
you've got a weird way, Bruce. You must have had a few beers when you started riding around here on your bike.
Well, okay, yeah, I think so. I kept thinking it's so hard to do it all fluently. That's why I missed it a few out. So, but having said that, if you came out the Golden Slipper and looked right in front of you, you'd see like an alleyway. That was Bedden, which was a site of slums at one point now. Bedden Hall's in there where the Guild and Freemason people are. But Bedden actually, a very small street that actually housed something like 1,800 Irish migrant workers who all came to work on the construction of the railways. Legendary tales of what went on down there. Not a sign left of any of the tenements remaining, sadly now, but the rumour was that they'd all come back from drinking on the railways, and they either lived in Bedden or in Warmgate. And they were literally drink-fueled riots every night. The riots would get out of control. The police had come down, absolutely have no effect on them, the police. So the police would call for the priests, and the priests would have to restore order every night. So Bedden Alley is down there. You can actually walk down Bedden from Goodham Gate outside the Golden Slipper Royal Oak, go in a straight line, and you'll then come down to Peasholm Green, and you'll be confronted by the rather magnificent Black Swan, one of York's finest pubs, of course, 16th century, and really probably arguably the finest pub room in York. If you go through there, take the second on your left, stunning ancient fireplace there with a large range, stone flag floors, and now doing pretty good food, industrial portions of home cooked food. But for all that, because it's location, it's never actually that busy, is it?
No.
And somehow, never quite generates the atmosphere it deserves either, does it?
It always had its reputation for its folk music, and it was always on the Real Ale Trail going back 30 years when there weren't that many pubs in York that were promoting Real Ale.
The Brown Cow was...
Was it always a Theakston's in there, Bruce? Was it Theakston's in yeah.
Still a free house.
I remember because the Brown Cow was across the road. Well, not across the road, but a bit further up, wasn't it? So as you went back into York, we'd often go back in here when we'd been the Brown Cow.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's well, I mean, like you said, they have the folk clubs, I think, twice a week now. But on a dark night, you have to say, I mean, I think if you were an American, for example, doing your own trip to Europe, and you wanted a real experience of being in a British pub, to go to that, the room as you go on the second on your left, this huge fireplace, the glow of the fire, and it is a fantastic room. And really, we probably arguably don't go to it enough, do we, really, especially in winter? I mean,
just a bit out of the way, innit? And I presume it was and looks like it was a coaching game, wasn't it? And it's been a little bit kind of left stranded by the kind of inner ring road, hasn't it? And the roads that kind of take, and it's kind of just outside the walls as well. This is one of the few pubs that's probably still got, last time I was there, still got a pool table in it, hasn't it?
No, not anymore. I don't believe
they got rid of it now, because that's again another reason why we used to go in there, because one of the few pubs that actually had a pool table. Okay, anyway, it looks very nice in York when you were doing these, Bruce. Although again, I presume that was shut, is it? Or that? Yeah, because I think a lot of, as you can see, a lot of space around it that it had. There's some big new glassy
right behind it, that's the Moxie Hotel. I mean, that's the Marriott Moxie. Then direct to the right-hand side of it, you've got the huge Hiscox Insurance Building. Yeah, rather strangely, if you do go to the Black Swan and just go to your right, there's a big office block for Hiscox Insurance. But if you go and have a peer through the window, they've actually got a rocket that goes from the first floor to the top of the building. An entire rocket. It's absolutely insane. It's well worth the class.
Right, and now we're diving straight back into York again.
Yeah, so we'd go. So now we'd walk back towards up pavement towards Stonebow, and back to the end of the Shambles. So to get to the end of the Shambles.
Hang on, let's just go back up because I had this later. We're gonna come back to Shambles. No, we are, but we mentioned the Shambles. I think last time we were talking about it, and I was trying to find a picture, and they don't really do it justice. And we did talk about how these are. It's a fantastic street. It's the old Butcher Street in York, and many of these things have still got the old butcher's hooks hanging out, isn't it? And of course, the idea is that these are medieval houses, so that as they each floor sticks further and further out, so that literally, I mean, this is probably the bit, and it literally in the bits where they really hang together, which is towards the middle, you can reach out and shake hands across the gap, really, don't they? And as I say, often this is full of thing, but you can see the Harry Potter why it's Diagon Alley in Harry Potter thinking, and there's a lot of one shops, and there were probably more pubs around now. I think there's only about one or two, isn't there? And obviously Pivney and Valhalla are just off here, and Market Tap as well. And then we can't go without reminding people that, of course, the show's called Malton Travail, and Malton has its own mini little Shambles. Not quite as picturesque as the York one, but similar kind of thing. This was the Butchers, used to be the old Butchers Row, when Malton was a bit more of a thriving, well, it still is a thriving town, but when it was much more, where people didn't shop in Tesco's. It's now very much kind of antiques, focus, cobbler, and famously a cashmere wool shop or a cashmere sock shop.
No,
she's gone now, is she?
Not there anymore. Yeah. Selena's gone.
Selena's stopped. Gone. It was a mum, was it? It was never her in it. It was always a mum that had the shop anyway at the bottom end.
She's a big advocate for Malton, though. Is she still living in Malton, Nick?
She was, Bruce, but she's gone quiet. So whether there's been a fallout.
No, she's on quite a few. She's on quite a few. She was on. I tell you what, she was on. Right. She was on. There was a walks program that I watched not so long ago, and she was walking not a million miles away. And this obviously backs on to the marketplace where we mentioned the spotted cow and the Golden Lion. Actually, that isn't that door there on the left. There isn't that the old back door to the Golden Lion, which again is another pub that sadly has been shut. Yeah, I remember that back door there. Anyway, there we go. So that's a Shambles. So we're going to come up there. Anyway, we're in York. This is another cracking street, isn't it? This street here is another little gem in York. Again, slightly off the kind of tourist trade. Get a lot more locals down here. And even in that picture, you can see at least two pubs, and there's one across the road, isn't there, already? So this is the famous Blue Bell Bruce, which again, it's probably can't miss in York.
No. I mean, this is it. I mean, probably
that's if you can get in.
Yeah.
If the landlord lets you in.
Yeah, I won't let you in. He's talking in a group. You're not misbehaving. Probably York's finest pub, you could argue, couldn't you? Really, it's a perfectly preserved Edwardian pub, really, and that's about it, really. Sadly, about 20 years ago, the window, which you see, was put through. So the original window was cutting away. We couldn't see inside. That's gone now. So somebody put up a stone through on Christmas Eve. But when you go inside, it's two very small rooms, a tiny corridor. Fires in each room. As you go in through that door there, turn left. Probably my favourite pub room anyway. You're right on the bar's right on top of you. You've got the bottles and glasses there. You're literally on top of the fire. Probably seats about 10 and standing for 5. Absolutely fantastic. Again, if you were an alien land and you wanted to go to a room in any one pub anywhere, Bluebell's unbeatable.
And again, if you can, Bruce, get there early. Get there just after opening in the morning. Exactly. 11:30, 11:45. You get a nice little seat in there. And again, although there's a couple of regulars, you don't get, you might get somebody moaning at you because you sat in their corner. But early doors, you'd be all right, wouldn't you?
I understand. No children, no groups, no swearing. Don't think football.
So it's famous because on the door, there's often, certainly on an evening, there'll be a note saying private party, no entry. And that basically is just to kind of keep the stag do's and the hen do's from going in there. So you just ignore that. Just ignore that sign.
Well, sadly, that was our legendary landlord, Jim Hardy. Jim sadly passed away about 2 years ago, I believe. And Jim had it for years.
That sign's still there, Bruce, because last time me and Nick went, the sign was on the door. And that was a Saturday afternoon. In fact, I think
stopped doing that because
the sign's there now. I can see it now that says it.
The new landlord was, it says no groups, but he used to put this thing saying private party. And of course, it was a great feeling when you were a local. You could go in there and you knew there really wasn't a private party. And of course, if you had friends visiting you, could take them to the pub, they'd be like, can't go in there, it's a private party. But like, follow me, and it was great. But yeah,
I don't get that because me and Nick still Saturday we aren't going to go in because all you had to do was put a guy on the door that said, "Oh, we're full at the moment. Sorry, all right, did you go?" But anyway,
well, I mean, Jim was a quiet man, but he was a character. I mean, he famously fell out with the local camera branch and branded them all weirdy beardies, which went down a storm, as you could imagine. The new landlords rebuilt branch for them, but he did tons of stuff for charity. And I say, sadly,
it looks like they've just tipped.
Do you remember, Bruce, before Jim had it, or maybe while he still had it, there was an old woman that used to be working behind the bar in there. She used to sit behind the curtain. I mean, the bar's very small anyway.
Well, Mrs. Robinson, that wasn't it?
It was literally a chair behind a shower curtain. And you used to walk in and you didn't think there was anybody behind the bar. Then she used to pull the curtain back and she was sat there.
I know. I only went twice, but it was stunning then, wasn't it, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I presume now all they've done there, Bruce, is just empty the pub, put it on the pavement, and they're getting away with certain people.
Otherwise, if you see watch on YouTube, even outside, he's even got a little see-through container with pot pies to sell.
I can see that there. It's there on your picture. And I presume the Fossgate tap then is not open because they've nicked all that pavement outside the Fossgate tap as well, haven't they, by nuts of it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it used to be super. Yeah, no.
So it is a great little pub. And I say, certainly if you're there in a midweek or you're there early on a weekend, it's worth popping in. But I think, Nick, me and you would prefer to go literally across, it is straight across the street, on the other side of the street, which is the Hop, which is, and it was an Italian restaurant, so it has got a fantastic pizza oven. It's quite surreal, isn't it, really? You went some kind of trattoria in the deepest Rome or somewhere, but it's a cracking, and this is Ossett, isn't it? It's an Ossett pub, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's one there.
Yeah.
It was, it's formerly Fellini's Italian restaurant, it was. Then before that, it was a famous butcher's shop for years. And you can see elements of both when you go in now, can't you? You've got they've actually gone back. I mean, it must have cost us a fortune, this, because you can see the original butcher's tiling. That's
ceramic tiles, yeah.
But I say what they've done, it's fantastic. It's a big space as well, this. Narrow on the front, seats in there, some little tables for two. Then a huge area at the back with bench seating. And again, really good pizza as well.
Well, that's why I like it, because I reckon anytime I've ever gone in there, I've always managed to get a seat. And when I watch people walk past, I think the frontage doesn't do it justice.
No, you're right.
I think people look at it and they don't really think they don't think it's a real pub, and especially that sign above the door there as well. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't look traditional. It looks like a Beatles album, a live music comedy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's got going for it. You can go in there, you can always get a seat. So yeah, if I'm York on my own, I will go there first, because I love getting a seat at one of the windows there, watch the world go by, enjoy the beers in there as well. But even taking my mum and Mila half in there, we've always managed to get a seat. And like you say, you've got that added bonus of freshly cooked wood-fired pizzas in the back there as well.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible.
A minute for that. In fact, I think we've already put a picture on here, and I'm on the podcast. Me and Nick was sat in that window where there's two guys there outside that small window, the right hand side, a nice little table, isn't it, Nick? A little table for two there.
Cheap beers.
All the Ossett beers, and then normally have quite a lot of ciders as well, don't we? Quite a few real ciders. Yeah, some kegs as well.
Well, once again, as you walk in the door, the left hand side there, you can just see to the window, big blackboard on the wall. Yeah, see what beers they've got on, how much you're paying as well. Yeah. And I've mentioned this before. I like that when I can see what the range of beers is. Even if the bar's busy, you know what you're asking for when you get to the bar. You're not standing there 10 minutes making a decision, which really annoys me when people have been sitting at the bar for 10 minutes and then they're asked, "What do you want, mate?" And they spend another 10 minutes deciding what they want. So I say there, blackboards there, prices, ABVs, what beers they've got on. Yeah, I say my favourite pub in York, I would say, in the city centre, definitely.
So again, I think we're now going to. Oh no, that's just Bruce is giving us a little picture just down that street there, Fossgate, which is lovely. And as Bruce said before, there's a nice picture of the Minster, and it is quite a collective street, Fossgate, isn't it? It's quite and they're all independent little shops and restaurants and boutiques and places, all very nice. So I think we're just having a change of beers now. So Nick's now moving on to the Hawks and Red by the side of that side of it. And I've moved on to a Yeasty Boys Big Mouth session. I've got to say that salt beer was very nice, actually. I definitely have that again. Very pintable as well. I could be drinking that on cast, definitely. Really
you don't Well, like I say, I haven't seen it much on cast, but I know when I've tried it, it has been a nice beer.
So I couldn't decide, Bruce, whether this was a historical link to the Merchants Hall, or we're back onto a food trail again.
No, this was food related.
We've done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday tea for Bruce at those various pubs with fine English fare. So this is when he has to kind of take something home to cook with. So the Hairy Fig, which is a bit further down from the Hop and the Bluebell, isn't it? Next to the very, very famous Merchants Hall, which is again one of the old kind of fashioned medieval guilds where the shop merchants would have their little meetings and food and things, which is again often there's some very posh banquets and then things. And then the Hairy Fig, which just sell beer, doesn't it, as well as a range of other things.
It does. We've given it mention though because it's quite nice. They've got the alleyway next to Merchants Hall there. Merchants Hall, of course, actually built on the proceeds of spices being brought in. Spices price per gram was higher than gold. Thank you, Granny. Bye. That's Granny going. So that's literally. But Hairy Fig gets the worth of mention because probably the second finest pork pies in Yorkshire. In the city centre, they actually come from a village called Budworth pies in the Hairy Fig, I believe. But yeah, absolutely cracking. Do sell out early though, but they're a fantastic pork pie. Everything about them, they're packed full of top quality. Great crust, definitely worth looking at. And loads of other fine local produce as well there. And I say just down from the Hop, just down from the Bluebell. So definitely worth a visit while you.
And as you see there, I think next door in the kiosk, there's a lot of that little kind of barrister kind of bars here, aren't they? And actually, quite a few do beers as well. They do beer and coffee, don't they? Kind of that kind of combination. And then a little bit further down that road, which again tucked away, really, you'll probably miss it, and it's quite a nondescript building, really, isn't it? For the greatness that his Brew York has brewed into. His Brew York, which again is their beer hall is here, which again is again quite a weird building, really, isn't it? With lots of different bits and quite a large outdoor area. So I presume they're doing quite good business. Here as this term as well. Do they brew here as well? Or do they brew elsewhere? Or is it,
no, they're brewing here, but obviously because it's becoming, I think it's one of Britain's fastest growing beer brands now, Brew York. They've also got new out of town premises, Osbaldwick as well.
Yeah,
where they're going to brew hundreds of thousands more pints every year as well. But so this is the beer hall, still brewing here for the time being, but moving everything to Osbaldwick and ramping up production massively. I wouldn't be surprised if they start buying a couple of pubs as well. They've got one in Pockleton as well now, you know, the Pockleton Tap, that's owned by Brew York. But yeah, astonishing. If you like beer, this is some place really. You've got this vast, well, to be fair, they've got with the shadow of the vessels downstairs, there's a place to sit and drink, the traditional bar with about 8 or 9 hand pump beers on. But then you go upstairs and you're met by loads of bench seating, an open plan kitchen who do really good food, and then a bar, and above it there I think there's 6 huge TV screens displaying an ever-changing array of wild and wonderful beers. Loads are, of course, creations of Brew York. Some great plays on names, isn't there, really?
They're all kind of named after Hollywood stars and things, aren't they? With a slight twist on it. And it's kind of nightclub versus meets beer hall meets, don't know, canteen, isn't it? It's quite quite eclectic, the kind of feel. But it's like going, where you go in, it's like going in a nightclub. It's dingy, horrible. It's probably the worst entrance to any beer place in York because it is just like a dodgy nightclub. But like you say, it opens out and you've got the upstairs. And I said to the left there, there's a massive seating area, isn't there, on the cover?
Oh, huge, yeah. And of course, you've also got a very little small terrace now that goes onto the River Foss and looks onto Roundtree Wharf. That's really quite lovely. But yeah, I think there's about, I believe there's about never less than 4 dozen beers available on draft, I believe.
Pretty good.
You buy the beer by the third, the 2/3, or the pint as well, don't you, really?
Yeah, and like you say, a massive range. And obviously, they also do all their canned and there's many canned, they do many bottles of the and there's some wild and wonderful wacky things that you could drink with Brew York, which there always is. And then you're heading back up that street, you've got on the corner there, is it the old Red Line or just the Red Line these days?
Yes, I said the old Red Line, but the real Red Line Merchant Gate, again, old building, full of nooks and crannies. Again, it probably don't go to often enough, really, but there's a moment got a large outdoor seating area, little pods. Well worth a visit.
I'm just in there, happy hour, Monday to Friday, all cask scales, £3.50 by the looks of it.
Not bad, that is it.
And they've got this nice area on the side here, Bruce, haven't they? Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can see the outdoor.
More of a locals pub, that one, I reckon, Bruce.
Yeah, though I mean, remember there's 2 new hotels up and down Piccadilly now.
Yeah,
So,
there's a
you know,
big,
those- and
big
just
Premier Inn there. Yeah.
and for those people looking on YouTube, you can see York's controversial York Spark builder behind it. Obviously, the first one popped up in London. Then we've got Stack in Newcastle, and then we've got these places where the shipping containers put together, little pavements, pathing, drainage, toilets, and let out as individual units. And the York Spark one, not being that much controversy, much tidier now. It was initially just a mishmash of shipping containers. But, you know, the launch pad for lots of little businesses, it's kind of served its purpose. It's got an extension. I think Pivney have a small unit in there, loads of little bars. And really, if you were a craft beer producer looking to get some premises, I don't think it's too expensive at all, really. It's only survived as Spark York because they were told they had to clad it. It really did look like a mess, really. But then again, you know, there's nobody controlling it. I mean, I've been to Stack at Newcastle, which is very tidy, very well laid out. But the whole thing's underpinned by Heineken. All the units in there are only allowed to sell beers that come from the Heineken stable of beers. So everyone's selling Heineken, a Red Stripe, anything there. Where these guys are totally fairly tight like that. So in a way, fair game to them. Obviously, a lot of people think that these guys should be in proper buildings, paying proper rents and rates. So not that there.
But again, yeah, as Bruce mentioned, I think that's probably one of those hotels about if you're going to stay in York for the night and you can't afford to go into the big posh hotels in the station, you've got a Premier Inn, a Travelodge down in Hampton that are quite big, aren't they?
Yeah, you've got a Marriott Garden Court.
Which again are your cheap options. A nice bit of York, really. You're only about a 10-minute walk from the city centre. So again, this is probably where you might end up if you were down there. And then, we're going back up to Shambles, Bruce. So you've got here the Shambles Tavern.
Yeah, no, this is one of the great things about York. I mean, obviously, we're on the Shambles, one of the most famous, streets in the world, really, the Shambles, isn't it? And in excess of 4 million people are passing out the Shambles every year. So if you think of all those really famous tourist thoroughfares in London, Rome, Paris, wherever, mostly what you buy is rubbish, overpriced rubbish, isn't it? And to be fair to the people both in Shambles Tavern, as we've seen them in the pie shop next door, they haven't exploited the position at all. Instead, they've kind of risen to the challenge. They've taken over these famous buildings, and they're actually serving top-notch products. The Shambles Tavern, the front of it, it's a little beer shop, huge supporters of local breweries, and you rather uniquely, almost in an Irish-style fashion, you can actually pull up a stool, sit at the counter of the beer shop, and buy any bottle in front of you. If you want, they'll open those. Or they also have the house beer brewed them by Rudgate and Tockwith, and have some guest beers on as well. And at the back of it, which I should have taken a picture of, they've now installed a patio, a covered patio with heaters that's actually in the market itself. So there you are, you sat there surrounded by the hustle and bustle of the market. You're drinking beer from Brew York that's actually incredibly a lot cheaper than Brew York itself. So they've also got Rudgate beers on as well. So fair game to them. And I was there for lunch with my wife last week, and they had a limited menu on because of the pandemic. But we were eating burgers that had come from 60 yards away from Swain's Butchers, in a bread bun that had come from the Haxby Bakehouse, 40 yards to the left of us. You can't.
And a takeaway pie for £4 in the city centre, which again can't be that bad, really.
No, that's right. It's only 30p more to sit and drink it. Yeah. Also got some upstairs rooms as well. So I say it's open till 11 o'clock, pub hours now. It was a struggle to get it open because of licensing. Council a bit funny about having a pub down there, but it's thriving. And I say, under absolutely no way have they exploited the position as well. It's a fair price, great products, supporting there. So, fair game to them, really, yeah. Big success.
And again, Bruce makes another reason to go down the Shambles because he's also going on where he can go to the Shambles Sausage and Pie Company.
Right, next up. In fact, I was there for my lunch yesterday, yeah. And again, in the same vein, imagine a pie shop, 4 million people passing the doorway. I don't need to bother, I'll buy it anyway. These pies are probably the best in the country now. When this started, there's a good butcher in Huntingdon, New York, called Wilson's. I believe it's linked to the Wilson's family. A really nice fellow called Andrew's got it now. And the pies just get better and better. They're absolutely, if you like a pot pie, these as fine as you get. I mean, last week alone, I had pies from Ilkley. The week before I had pies in Skipton. And Saturday, nothing comes close to these. They're absolutely stunning. They've got
That's why you're not drinking any, Bruce, because your disposable income goes on pies rather than beer.
and Bruce is currently planning the York Pie Ale Travel podcast, which will shortly be with you, which takes you on a pie crawl around the country's finest county.
You could do it, yeah.
Yeah, I do think we'll just go back because I do think while we were on the kind of bottom of Fossgate, whatever that becomes there, we have got to mention that obviously
Should have turned left.
Yeah, well, a
Turn
pub
left.
that obviously the Phoenix we're going to come to in a minute, but
I
the
have
other pub that
said, is it too late for doing slurt them in here now?
yes,
I've said
the other pub I want to talk about is the Spread Eagle because it is still there, isn't it? But it's a hollow, and I think if you did probably 25 years ago, we would not have ever gone to York without going to the Spread Eagle, which is down towards the bar at the bottom of the street on the right here past the Red Lion. Again, there's another street here that's got loads of pubs in it. But towards the end, within sight of the bar down there, was the Spread Eagle, which again in our days was a cracking pub. Again, one of those early York pubs that really got into cask beer. And again, there'd be quite a few different beers on in there.
Bixton's Landlord.
Taylor's beers on it there.
Yeah, and the legendary Cat of Nine, which was a whole baguette cut up and filled with the finest Yorkshire beef with lashings of onion gravy. Which
it was the dead cat. The dead kitten was a
kitten,
small baguette. The dead cat was a whole French French
cat.
Sliced in two, full of rice on a bed of chips. Yeah, it was bonkers.
Which was great. And then they used to do quite a nice curry as well, didn't they? Used to do quite a fiery curry. So we would always spend probably far too much time and money in there. And that was, again, had a nice kind of, I guess it was almost it was a very big snug, and then it had a down the side as well, wasn't it, into a kind of back room as well, and a little bit of that back as well. So, that was one of our earliest, probably biggest haunts, really, whenever we went to York. That was definitely the pub that we would go into. And then I can remember Nick going into some of those slightly dubious pubs. There's the Five Lions that's down that road as well, which is
that's now called the rename now, is it? That's the Waterfront Hotel now. The
right,
Five
okay,
Lions.
the Five Lions.
They reckon they had one of the finest beer gardens in York, didn't they? Because that's overlooking isn't the Foss as well, like.
Yeah.
But that's it opened, it closed. Yeah.
And of course, the Phoenix is now down there now, isn't it? Which we need to probably talk about now, really. The Phoenix, which is
Phoenix is a stunning pub, just at the end of Hope Street there, up across the York Barbican. So if you're going for a concert, Phoenix place go. And it was a traditional locals pub that fell into disrepair and opened up, I think, in the late 90s. The gentleman who reopened it, sadly, he passed away a few years ago, but his family have taken on, and it's an absolutely fantastic pub, isn't it, the Phoenix? When you go in there, they've got the front to the right, the front room's fantastic, a roaring fire in winter, fantastic range of well-kept beers, candlelit when it gets dark, and a large room at the back, again, pretty much unspoiled. Just a little bit off the beaten track, but I say paradoxically opposite the back, we're going to concert. I did take photos and that's sent them last night and forgot to upload them to Michael. So
beer garden at the back, Rose.
There is absolutely. I don't think it's open yet, sadly.
And pies on the bar.
Yeah, pies on the bar.
Right.
It's absolutely one of York's best pubs, and I say really only 5 or 6 minutes walk from the Shambles. Really, it's well worth a visit. Absolutely.
And then you've took us back then into kind of Goodrum, getting up there, and you're going to finish. I think this is the last pub on the list for this. Is the Snickleway in Bruce. So you talk about. I'm going to go for a quick pee while you carry on and tell me about the Snickleway.
So the Snickleway used to be the Anglers Arms. Nothing to do with fishing, because of course, as we all know, pubs went through a period of time where they were predominantly named after the clients who inhabited them, and the Anglers Arms was the preferred drinking place for all the stonemasons who worked on the Minster, and of course the right angle to keep all the stones straight was their essential tool. So the Snickleway used to be the Anglers Arms, and then I think about 25 years ago they renamed it the Snickleway in honour of York's preferred name for all the alleyways and ginnels that run through the city. The Snickleway is actually a name that was made up by a gentleman who actually wrote a book to catalogue all these alleyways and ginnels. He gave them the name Snickleway, but it sounds really old, doesn't it? And I say the Anglers Arms became the Snickleway, and an absolutely cracking pub it is as well, really. Certainly the best pub in Goodrum Gate. It's small, it's got sort of one open room, it's got a roaring fire in winter, then a room that comes off it, a long narrow room, again with a fire in there. Absolutely cracking, big commitment to real ale. You can even get a snack from the tiniest kitchen you get there.
Ignore the John Smith sign on the other side of the door.
Sadly, the fact does the gentleman who owned this thing, his wife, the real big real ale. And if you ask them nicely, they might let you take a look at their cellar, because the cellar is absolutely minute. You have to sort of crouch down to about 4 foot, and they have to operate and get all the beer down there. It's astonishing. And again, arguably one of York's most haunted pubs again as well. The gentleman landlord who used to have it, Frank, who died again not so long ago. He was a pretty bluff, no nonsense Yorkshire man. He wasn't one to spin a yarn. He had the pub for a lot of years, and I remember speaking to him, and he would talk about being there by himself and things moving about, noises, and he was the type of when he totally thought there was something in it really. So yeah, so probably the finest pub down Goodrum Gate, Snickle Way. Amazing they've actually opened up now with just 4 tables or 2 outside. Yeah. And traded. They've also got a very, very tiny bit out back called the Yard, and it's so small. So a fair game to them, really. But
is Goodrum Gate traffic free these days? Because I saw
it is traffic free from the Cross Keys onwards down to Church Street, Bridge Street. Yeah.
Obviously, they've taken over the whole of the pavement, and this is quite a narrow street.
It is, yeah.
So if you were having to walk in the road, and lorries and cars and things do go down it because they do deliveries. So
they've got barriers now and security men for the pandemic.
Yeah, right.
It's temporarily traffic free, yeah. But definitely preferred choice of.
But it was handy for, like you said, the Minster Yard that was being used as a communal drinking area after the second lockdown last year. Yeah. We were going there for our takeouts, weren't we? They were supplying you with a little poly pin, £5 deposit on it, wasn't there? Yeah. So we were getting 4 pints of beer. That I think was charged. It was working out what £3.50 a pint, wasn't it? And so if you are in that part of York and you're still having to drink outdoors, if you don't want to sit directly in the front of the pub, if the Minster Yard area is being reopened as a communal drinking area, then you can always go there, get a poly pin from the bar, 4 pints of beer, and then go and take it round there and drink it.
Yeah, they've also got seating now on the other side of the Minster, just for the Dean Court Hotel there. They've also put seating in the area in front of the York Art Gallery as well. So a fair game for the council. They are doing all they can to support pubs with an outdoor seating, because they've created some lovely seating areas in some of the finest parts of the city where normally you're allowed to sit and drink.
But I mean, why not, Brooke? As I say, we said this, every other town or city in Europe, this is normal to them. Any open square, any plaza, any piazza, they're just full of tables and chairs.
Yeah, no.
That's how it should be, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right, I'm on my last beer of the podcast, so I've now gone to a Whiplash rollover session IPA, which is quite lively. A little bit of a bit of haze, and Whiplash. I think there's another brewery that
looks like homebrew to me.
This is whiplashbeer.com, Dublin.
Yeah.
That's when you used to put too much sugar in the bottle to try and make it more alcoholic.
I've been listening to the Hopinions podcast. They're now talking about Yellow Belly, which is I think they are in not Watford. The other one, what's the one next to Watford? Wexford. And interesting, what they've done is they've actually now purchased a warehouse in England, and they are bringing beers over on lorries and selling them from here, because that means they beat a lot of the problems of trying to sell beer from the Republic of Ireland now via bloody Brexit. And they were making a point that that's a hell of a commitment, but it shows you the challenges that some of those Irish breweries have got to try and flog beer now to the UK. And obviously the UK market is a massive one, so that was quite interesting. Now again, Goodrum Gate, Monk Bar Bruce, there's another area where there are literally pubs every other building, aren't there? Nick's already mentioned that almost across the Snickle Way, there's the Robinsons on the corner there, isn't there? And then the other big Nicholson's, and then there's also the Swan a little bit further up, isn't it? Which is that's another really old pub, isn't it? The Swan.
Yeah, that was where the coaches used to originally depart from. Goodrum Gate was the sort of main thoroughfare for all the coaches that used to head from York to north and south. Lots of tales of people being run over, walking into the path of the coaches as he came out with the various things.
So I think that brings us to the ends of certainly the ones that Bruce sent me. So I reckon in a minute I've got the list. So I reckon that's 42 pubs, 43 pubs that we've kind of talked about. We've mentioned that we haven't. We've talked about the Phoenix, but we haven't got a picture of it, so we haven't. Well, we have to talk about it. Nick, for you, is there any other ones that we've missed off the list that? And with that, I'll show you the list in a minute. And then I remember last time I set us all the challenge of picking Pop's best 3, and whether we've changed those.
Yeah, I would say just a couple at the bottom of Hull Road there, the Coach and Horses and the Rook and Gaskell.
Yeah.
For Real Ale. So there's a couple there. Like you say, Phoenix. You say Brown Cloud's closed now, Bruce?
No, that's reopened as a
Taylor's landlord.
No, it's Sam Smith's pub now,
yeah.
And Nick, you were always a big fan of the bloody Handsome Cab, weren't you, in town?
Yes, yeah, that was Sam Smith's.
the
changed
Burns
his name,
Hotel.
which
Yeah.
is a terrible thing to do because Mr. Hanson, who invented the Hanson cab, came from York.
Yeah.
And normally Sam Smiths are pretty good at either a bit like Weatherspoons at keeping history or paying tribute to. So why is they call it the Burns Hotel now after Robbie Burns?
Because it was the Burns Hotel for a long, long period of time, and he only got renamed the Handsome Cab in something like the 1960s. So Mr. Smith thinks he was resorting back to the original name.
So the Hanson cab was really bang in the middle of the shopping area, and it was a Sam Smith's pub. Quite a nice pub, actually, some lovely old bloody leather seats.
Well,
in the
that's why
back seats.
I was reading about it the other week, and he deliberately put all the leather button seating in there, so it was like the inside of a Hanson cab, the dark wood. So when you were in Victorian London, you climbed your Hanson cab, you often got a leather button seat, and you're surrounded by the interior of the little wooden taxi cab. So that's deliberately when they did the pub. Humphrey had his pub look like the interior of a Hansom cab. So yeah, for the sort of clientele that used to go in there, the fixtures and fittings.
Well, it was a mix, wasn't it? Because it got a bit of a reputation of being a bit of a dodgy pub, but it wasn't really. You just had quite a few guys who often either worked or lurked around the city centre, a lot of kind of street cleaners. You also got a lot of tourists in there because it's in the tourist trail, because they used to bang out meals, didn't they? So you get loads of people kind of from Italy and Spain trying to drink all brewery bitter, going, oh, blimey, and then trying something stupid like the mild or something. So there was always loads of beer left around. And I've got to say that the ruffians were quite nice, York ruffians. York's quite genteel.
Because at that time they had he was a long-standing landlord. You always remember he had his pipe and his handlebar moustache. And he was a proper landlord, because you always saw him, no matter whether he went in there during the week, weekends, night or day, he was always in attendance. And he knew everybody. And if his locals were carrying on, he knew how to put them back in check and sort them out. And that made a big difference. And yet, the last couple of times I've been in, it was a bit rough and ready, like. But that's anyway, what cheap alcohol attracts, isn't it?
It's very much a touristy pub now, and I presume they might have a cask beer on. But the one I thought about, Bruce, was the Mason's Arms, which again, the Murray Arms. Is it Murray or Mason Arms? Mason's Arms, which we've been a few times, which is quite nice. That's just outside the walls, quite near the river, which was always good and did some really good food. The Micklegate Social we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. That's kind of an up and coming place, isn't it?
It is, I
mentioned there's a brewery linked to that now as well, and that's the ice cream factory. Nick mentioned the Rook and Gaskill. I remember that's the other brewery now, that they 3 beers or something we talked about.
We used to go in Walker's Bar, bottom of Micklegate, when we first started.
Which is called the Artful Dodger now. Yeah, that used to be Theakston's house, didn't it? Yeah.
Theakston's house. Yeah, it used to be a lovely, lovely pub, didn't it?
So, let me put the list up then. So I've got the list here. So we have talked about the York Tap, the Maltings, the Trafalgar Bay, the Golden Ball, the Yakon, the Last Drop, the Swan, the Slip In, the Volunteer Arms, the Fox, Crystal Palace, the Minster Inn, the Exhibition, the Lamb and Lion, the Eagle and Child, the York Arms, Three-Legged Mare, the Guy Fawkes, the House of Curly Manders, the Punch Bowl on Petergate. Is it Petergate? Stonegate. The Pivney, because there's quite a few Punch Bowls in York. The Pivney, the Valhalla, the King's Arms, the Blue Boar, the 3 Tons, the Pavement Vaults, Maggie Cat, Golden Fleece, Golden Slipper, Shambles Tavern, Royal Oak, the Black Swan, the Bluebell, the Hop, Brew York, the Red Line, and the Snickleway Inn. Now, I've got another one, actually, because I haven't mentioned the Leeds Brewery pub, Nick, that me and you like going into.
Oh, Duke of York.
Duke of York, which is quite nice. That's on a nice little square where York chocolate is based, isn't it? Just off the Shambles. It's quite a strange little kind of pubby thing, but the beer's always Leeds. We like Leeds Brewery.
Well, it's a pseudo pub, because anybody looking at it thinking it's been there for hundreds of years. But it's not. You've been estate agents. It's a black and white timbered building. And they've got the crooked timber at the front. You walk in there, and it's dark and it's dingy. It's often very cold in there. Smells of fish and chips as well. So a lot of tourists think it's been there for hundreds of years, but in fact, it's not. It's only been a pub for what, about 5, 6, 7 years, Bruce?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
So I've also got brew. I would, as an equity punk, I'd have to go to Brewdog because I'd get my lifetime 5% discount. Nick's mentioned Rook and Gaskell, Phoenix we talked about, Mason Arms, and then we get Social. So I think that makes 42. So Nick, top 3.
Well, I'd say Hop is the one that I would always go in.
Yeah.
I'm on my own because I know I can sit in the window, watch the world go by, get a decent beer, get the internet access in there as well. So if I need to go on the internet, I can do it in there. Can almost work from home, as it were. Which are the other ones? Say I've said before, Bruce, you're so lucky having the Fox and the Crystal Palace. You've got the Sam Smith's pub, which is no nonsense pub, and then the Fox, just for its interior. It's obviously was a Tetley's Heritage House. Once again, you've got that massive, great big area outside, just out of the city as well. So it doesn't normally get as manic as you've just sort of suggested it has been because of people going a bit daft in the beer garden. So, I would think they've been top three: Crystal Palace, the Fox, and the Hop.
Okay, Bruce?
The one I've omitted, of course, was the Wellington and Alma Terrace in Fulford. I just forgot to send you the picture. That's one we should have mentioned. You can walk to it by the riverbank. Here at Alma Terrace in Fulford. It's a classic, small, 3-room pub in terrace off the riverbank. Sam Smith's pub, it's just literally in the middle of all the pubs, but a real classic example of,
Not on the list, Bruce.
Which,
You've had it. You've missed it on the list.
It's a residential street, and once again, you wouldn't know. Walking down that street, you think you're walking down residential street, terraced houses either side. Typically in York now, cars parked nose to tail all the way down that street. And you just have to walk past this building that doesn't quite just look like another terraced house, because it's twice the width. No, hang on, it's got a pub sign hanging outside it with a picture of the Pauline.
Anyway, it's not on the list. It's off. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's not on the list. Go on, Bruce. Pick three.
We'll have to do the mop up next week. I think the Bluebell. The Bluebell is, it's in the camera inventory of historic interior, deservedly so. It's perfectly preserved. You feel like you're drinking a place that is a little piece of history. Great atmosphere, and I think I really, really like the Phoenix as well. Phoenix is a lovely, lovely pub. That room when you go in on the right-hand side, especially when it's dark, the fire's lit, it's candle lit. It's by people who know beer. So I say definitely the Phoenix as well. And I think if I had to go for one of the more modern ones, for the choice of beers, the comfort, if you can get a seat, the Market Cat's a good place to have a few hours as well.
Agree with that one, Rose.
It might be easy for me because I don't come to York that often now, and often I've come with the train. I'll be meeting Nick, or we maybe have a quick hour and a half, or the family have gone shopping. So I think for me, it would be probably the Maltings, just because certainly since I've not lived in Yorkshire for the last 20 odd years, that's the first pub I'd always go to. I think I said York Tap. I don't mind the York Tap, but I'd probably walk over, and normally I'd probably meet Bruce or Nick in the Maltings. I said when train's gone in, I'll see you there. I think the Minster Inn then for me, because I just love that little walk anyway. Through the Yorkshire Museum Gardens, past through there down by the river, and then I think you're right, Bruce. I love Thornbridge beer, so I think a pint of Jaipur in that top in a top booth right at the top of there, and then maybe have a Green Mountain just to slack my thirst. And then pick one of them mad beers to finish off. So I think for me it would be the Maltings, Minster Inn, and then the Market Cat, which is a nice little zip.
Yeah, it's impossible to pick your favourite because it all depends on what mood you're in, what day it is, whether you're on your own, whether you're in company, whether you want to chat, whether you want to see a bit of nightlife, and that's what York's not going for with all the different, variations of the different pubs that are available.
If you had the choice, though, I would say if you can go for a midweek day in the autumn, probably October, November. I think York's at his best there. It's a bit quieter. As you said, a lot of these pubs have real fires. You'll just get the light dropping at about 6, 7 o'clock, and it gets now.
Have an overnighter.
Yeah. And,
go up by train, overnighter. Plenty of cheap hotels in York now. Premier Inns, travel lodges. Have an overnighter.
Right, we have been getting better keeping the time down. I think we've gone slightly over this week. So I think we've mentioned a couple of our plans. So Bruce, you've got plans for the long weekend?
Yes, weather permitting, although it's not the weather forecast is looking quite shocking. I think we'll have to do what we need to do Saturday, Sunday, because Monday's going to be an absolute washout, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like it on the forecast. Nick, you're still up in the lakes for another few days.
Just
Sunday,
going with the flow.
Sounds like you're following the lake.
Going with the flow, see what's
going
what.
with the flow. Sounds
It'd be interesting to see. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it gets any busier up here. As I say, I'm sure they are missing out their international tourists as well, like Edinburgh is, because obviously this time of year it's normally chock-a-block full of Chinese and Japanese tourist buses.
Right,
So as I say, certainly we've not seen the volumes of people in Bowness and Ambleside Place like that, but be interested to see. I know they get a lot of people coming from Cheshire, from Liverpool area, on weekends. So we'll see what happens this weekend.
Okay, as mentioned, I've got a little trip into the Peak District, so I'll hopefully be able to report back on the fun I've had at Buxton Brewery. I've already been looking at the beer. I've already downloaded the app. I've already been looking at the beers that I'm going to have. I think I'm going to. I think they've only got one cask at the moment, but they've got a few kegs on. So I'm going to go for a pint of cask and probably start straight away on 3 kegs, just 3 halves, and start sampling. And then I'm also looking forward to Thornbridge just because Thornbridge beers, I love Thornbridge beers, and I've just think again they've got some cracking things. I'm hoping I can get one of the Adnams Thornbridge collabs that I've not seen anywhere, or we mentioned a few times. And then the plan next week, Nick. So while you're up there, you did a little bit of homework while on holiday. Is that we're going to do Sheffield, and I think, gents, we should commit here. So I want you next week to have your diaries out, because we've said that Chef will probably be one of the first places that we might go to as an initial when we get released. So post the 17th of May, when we can fully travel and hopefully we can sit in pubs. I think we should actually do a proper and kind of walk the talk and talk the walk or whatever, and actually plan our trip to Chef with a possible overnighter. So I'll look at some prices for hotels and things, and Nick's probably got some. I've certainly got a lot of credit that they keep desperate for me to go to a hotel, either the Hilton chain or the chains that I've got membership of. And I think, Nick, if you'll be in the chair next week, because it's one of your kind of past cities as a student there. So a nice little tour around Sheffield. I think if we get under 12 pubs would be quite useful. Which is doable, isn't it? Because I think me and you really good pubs. Yeah. So that's the plan.
Bit more walking in Sheffield compared to York. That's York's so compact.
We'll get a tram. We've got trams in Sheffield. We'll get a tram.
Yeah.
We have to have a tram.
I'll jump on the bus.
But we're not going out. We're not going out to Rotherham or anywhere like that, though. Please.
Bruce, we wouldn't go to Rotherham, would we?
Well, yeah. I like that old mill pub. Yeah, and that bakery was great. And those peculiar sausage sandwiches, they leave a lot in memory.
And we can jump on a bus, Nick, and go through Abbeydale and go to Totley if you really want, and up the Plume or somewhere, just for your old time's sake, if you want.
The Fleur de Lis was closed. They've knocked it down now. So,
and they don't brew that frog and parrot stuff anymore, do they? That stuff that was bloody whatever it was. I did see, actually. I think is it
Roger and Out. The frog and parrot was the pub on West Street, and it was called Roger and Out, and they only ever gave it you in thirds. And after each third, they gave you a certificate that was more and more blurred. But me being a Yorkshire lad, straight into the city, I said, I didn't want a third, I want a pint, mate. No, we're not allowed to serve it by a pint. So why not? I said, what's different? Just me buying 3/3 on bar. So I managed a pint of it, but got my certificate.
And I can remember one of your mates throwing up all over the window the nice Italian next door and doing it.
Pizza,
I've read somewhere, I'll find out for next week. Maybe Brewdog. Somebody's got a 57% beer out at the moment. Which apparently sold out, but they've just released it. I've got a feeling it might be Brewdog, so I'll check that one out. 57% beer, that's just mental, isn't it? But anyway, so that's the plan. So we will record that next Thursday, which is something like the 4th, 5th of May, and hopefully be out for the next weekend. So cheers, guys. Thanks very much. Chin chin.
See you, bye.
Have a good weekend, and we'll catch up again next week.